All right, welcome everybody to the Random Files. I'm your host, Josh Turner. This is Random Files. It's not like TCP join us in the true crime reality or PRT join us in the paranormal, whatever, the real reality. It's just Random Files. Yeah, we're going to dive in here. And this is an informal show. We're going to be doing some pre-records, and we're gonna have a co-host. Her name is Anna Choate, and I'm going to throw her a link and let her come on tonight so that she can actually be introduced to you guys. So you'll know what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to just start by talking about Tartaria and the targeting of the old world buildings and what that means. And sorry, but I got to build some saliva here. My mouth is really dry. I'm trying to chew some gum. Just did a 2.5-hour show on Paranormal Roundtable. If you're new here, that's our main channel. And you can see the logo. That's one of them. And we have another one here. What do you guys think of the logo? And most of you are paratroopers from Paranormal Roundtable. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. What do you guys think of that logo? Nelly made that logo. Stop chewing in a minute here. I just got to get this done. We were talking at the beginning of the show on Paranormal Roundtable about the destruction of old world buildings. And we always do some talking about different stuff until we get 300. Once we get 300 people in the chat, then we start doing the show. On Paranormal Roundtable, typically. So we have some people that they're watching us on YouTube and on Rumble. And like I said before, Rumble is going to be where we take when we start getting into some really heady stuff, Absolutely, Julie. I appreciate that you want to be, a mod. And hopefully this channel will take off and do, we've gotten big numbers. All of what we've done on True Crime Paranormal has been, recorded drops. And most of what we're doing on here, on Random Files, sorry, has been all lives. So 2 different ways that we're doing it. But we're going to start dropping some pre-records on here too. All right. Let me spit this gum out, and everybody's like, thank goodness. Sorry about that, folks. I am really sorry. I just had to get my mouth here because I'm just... So one of the things that has been complained about by Iran is that a lot of these old world buildings are being knocked down and destroyed by the United States and Israel. One of the things that I can tell you about this is that this is not a new occurrence. This is something that has been done time and time and time again, especially in the 20th century. A lot of wars have involved the destruction of old world buildings. Now, me personally, I have never really been a big proponent of Tartaria. And I had Guy Anderson on the show on Paranormal Roundtable. And if you know who Guy Anderson is, you'll probably know that he is a big, big advocate for the Tartarian civilization. He believes that our civilization was wiped away. One of the things that he talks about is the United States actually having been the Middle East. And he bases this on some pretty interesting information. He says that. Hold on. He says that the names of different places, and now even here in Texas, we have an Athens and a Palestine. That these places are literally named after these places, not just from the old world, but that this was actually the old world, and that Egypt being is basically, I think what he was saying, espousing, was that Egypt is like where the Grand Canyon is, and that the Grand Canyon shows scarring marks of having been obliterated by heat weapons with signatures levels that we can't produce, even with nuclear blasts. Interesting, right? He also has books he's written about the Cabbage Patch Kids. During the last reset, there were all these babies that were born, and they were passed off as orphans, and that you could buy them at the World Fair. That's a real thing, and that's a weird thing. He's been on my show. He was one of my guests one time, and we talked at length about all this stuff. Hold on one second. My back. Oh, sorry about that, folks. A little awkward there, but so one of the things that he talks about in his books and on his channels that he's been on and stuff, it's interesting to me. And one of the main, I guess, gripes that I had was about Tartaria, was that it was literally old world maps, and they called everything east of Moscow Tartaria. Do you know why? Anybody want to answer that?
It was the land of the Tartars.
What was it?
It was the land of the Tartars. It's just kind of like an umbrella term, like this area is where this group of people, the Tartars, this is where they inhabit.
Exactly.
And they just called it Tartaria.
And people have asked me before, they're like, well, if you know so much about history, what happened to the Tartars? And I'll tell you then, they were turned into tartar sauce.
Obviously.
They were destroyed by the Cossacks, which is actually part my dad's part Cossack, and that's our people. They destroyed them. They didn't destroy Tartaria because, and the way that people use that term is Tartaria, and Guy Anderson explained it on my show. He said, Tartaria doesn't exist in the way that we think it did. It's not the Tartars, right? Tartaria was a type of civilization. It was the age that it was living, that it was inhabiting, whatever. And so when people talk about this, hold on, I don't know if I should move this or is it this one here?
Was it in your face or what?
No, it's just really, it's showing up really weird and bright on the corner of the TV there. Sorry, folks. I don't know if that's bothering you. It's bothering me. I can't really make it stop. But if it's bothering anybody, I'm sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that. But so here's the thing. It doesn't exist in the way that we think it does. It's a ancient civilization, and it was the past. And people from that time period had natural energy, naturally occurring energy. And we know that this exists because Nikola Tesla actually harnessed it. And he told us, hey, there is infinite energy. Thank you for that, Tony, for fixing that light. That light was bothering me. He says, we don't need to use all of these different types of, fossil fuels and whatever to get energy. We can get it from the ether, as he called it. Well, here's the interesting thing. When he went to JP Morgan for funding, he says, yeah, and how do I put a meter on it? And Tesla says, what do you mean, how do I put a meter on it? He says, how do I harness this energy
to make money?
And to make money. And Tesla's like, well, you don't.
It's not meant to be.
So he says, it's natural. It's free. We don't need to buy it. He says, and I'm not interested. Because Morgan, along with most of his constituents, were evil, in my opinion, and they didn't care. But I guarantee you, all of these people, all of these quite interesting people, they all knew something. They knew that Tartaria probably existed at one time. They probably knew this. I believe that. Jacob Allister, he's another one. If you look these people up, man, they're no bueno. They're not good people. And I'm pretty sure that they were all involved in the cover up of this. This is what they do. The elites, the people that are in control, according to the theory of Tartaria, every so often, every maybe a few hundred years, couple hundred years, whatever, they decide that it's time for a reset. But you know why? What they usually wait a couple of hundred years. That's also an argument for reincarnation, because if you don't believe in reincarnation, fine, don't believe in it. They do. Because they know that they can move their bodies their soul into another body. And it's not a form of transcendence. It's quite the opposite. You're grasping, you're trying to stay here in the matrix. This is a matrix that we're living in. But that's another episode. We can talk about the matrix and what it is. We can talk about how Saturn is a black cube on Saturn, right? There's a prison there. What is it holding? And why does the moon affect us and make us crazy? Well, one of the prevailing theories is that Saturn actually reflects off of the moon, and that negative energy hits us. You're asking me, oh, why is all this weird stuff? What is the connection here? This is all bizarre. How does this all connect? How does it all fit? I'll tell you how, and I'll tell you why. Because the people that are in charge know that Saturn is a prison, and they know that this is a prison planet. And some of the people who follow their made-up religions actually wear it on their head, or they dance around it. And you're going like, why would they do that? Well, of course, to pay homage to the God of this world. Who do you think the God of this world is? Do you think it's the father of Jesus? Because Jesus tells us point blank that that is not the case. He says, and look this up, and I need you to do this. I'm not going to give you these verses. You need to open the Bible yourself and look these things up, because it's good for you. Jesus says that the God of this world is Satan. But before you say, oh, there's this one bad guy that's in charge of everything, he is the ultimate bad guy, the evil bad guy, whatever, there's not. And the reason I say that is because if you look into the 72 Goetian demons of the Ars Goetia, right, it is the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon. You can find that, the Testament of Solomon, it's all in there, all these different books. You can find what they are. And they're not demons at all. Demons are actually from the Nephilim bloodline, or the Nephil. These are entities that are actually archons. They were the rebellious ones that were cast down. And they took a third of the angels with them, a war that was fought in heaven.
What the heck? Let me go check on it.
Wow.
I don't know. It's not up here, so I wouldn't mess with it. But there was a war that was fought, right? There was a war in heaven. I think that's the guy below us. Right? So who are these Goetian demons? People think that a demon is the opposite of an angel, but they're not. These Goetian demons are actually angels themselves. And each one of them actually corresponds to another angel that's a good angel. And then there's the bad ones. But the reason that I tell you that there's more than one Satan is because Satan is literally, it just means accuser. The word is basically the opponent, right? How many people know that? And what is the main word that it's used for? Anybody know? Enemy? Somebody says enemy.
Adversary.
Adversary. Satan is the adversary. He's the adversary to goodness. He's the adversary to God. But Satan is not the be-all, end-all. And get this, it's actually shaitan, which is plural. It's a plurality. When the Elohim come down in the book of Job, which predates Genesis, and I'll tell you how this all connects, right? They ask the adversary, the shaitan, a plurality. They ask them. They're both plural. Elohim is a plurality too. It was just copy and paste, right? to make it look like it was all just one, monotheistic deity. And we're going to explain that on this show. Eventually, we're going to get into how Zoroastrianism, a Persian, very interesting. Persian is Iran, right? But it was a Persian religion that Judaism based itself off of. They had the Tanakh. There wasn't a written book before that. When they left captivity in Persia, guess what happened? The comments aren't on the screen, are they?
Let's see. Yeah, they should be there.
No, they're not. They're not on my screen. I can see them on the side of this thing, and if you're looking at your phone, you can probably see them.
Can on your phone?
No, on the screen right here.
No.
No, they're not on.
No. So the reason that this is all important, and I'm not going to get too far into the depths of all of these different things that I'm bringing up. I just want you to know what we're going to talk about on this show. But that book of Job actually predates Genesis, and people ask me, how is that possible? We'll get into that one day and explain to you on the Random Files exactly what that is. This is all orchestrated, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by that is that this is a war. Jesus tells us that we are fighting a war. We are in the middle of a battlefield, he says. Spiritual warfare is being waged all around you. And believe me, it's not just spiritual. It gets into your mind. It gets into the psyche, and it affects and afflicts the soul. On our other channel, True Crime Paranormal, which is one of our other channels, we talk about these Goetian demons and what they do and how they attach themselves to these different people, like these serial killers that do the things that they do. But that's a show for another night. Tonight, we're going to talk about why Tartaria was targeted for destruction. And why did they want another reset so quickly when supposedly there was just one, less than 200 years ago, according to the Tartarian conspiracy theorists. Here's where I differ from them. I agree that there was a Tartaria. I have looked into this, and I believe it was real. I don't agree with their timeline. I'm not the smartest man on earth. I'm like the third. I'm joking.
Quite humble.
I'm not third. I'm number two. There's only one other guy. I think he lives like in Michigan or something like that. Anyway, I'm joking, folks. Seriously, he lives in Japan. I'm. This is the deal. Okay. I don't agree with the timeline, and I did say that when Guy Anderson came on the show. We talked, and I said I don't know if I agree with the timeline. I don't know if I agree with that because the Civil War did happen. And my grandfather's grandfather he was there. And my grandfather grew up talking to my grandfather about his grandfather about it. He told me about it. But I can say this. There is absolutely proof, and they are erasing it as fast as they can, of an ancient civilization that's really not that ancient. We're not talking about Lemuria and Atlantis and the war between them and what their civilization, which some people believe harkens back over 3 to 4 million years ago. Some people say it goes even further back, maybe to a different set of yugas. Do you know what the yugas are? That's the Hindu yugas, the Satya Yuga, Tetra Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. We're living in the Kali Yuga. And I had somebody tell me something really funny one time. They're like, you believe we're in the Kali Yuga? And I said, yes, we are. And they said, that's crazy because if we were, we would be stunted little dwarf-like beings.
Yeah, we are.
And I said, compared to our ancestors, we are. And he said, well, that's crazy because we would only live like a quarter of the lifespans. I said, no, we are.
We do.
In the Satya Yuga, people lived to be 100,000 years old, and they did everything by the force of will. And everything was good. There was hardly any evil in the world. And civilizations were built by the sheer power of will. And people followed God and his word. But then came the Tatya Yuga. And morality was cut by 25%. And lifespans were cut down to 10,000, right? That's 10% of what it once was. And then it was cut again down to 1,000, another down to 10% of what it was in the previous age in the Dorpa Yuga. And guess what? Morality was cut down to 50%. Now, I don't know in the Vedas, I don't see where it says that, and that's these books from the Hindus, right? And I'm not Hindu, but I've read all of these things, and it says that morality was cut, right, during that time, during the Dwarpa Yugas, which they say yugas, which is plural. That means this has happened before. It gets cut down, and so you have literally only a quarter by the time you get to the Kali Yuga. It's only a quarter. Now, I don't know if that means that each one of us only has 25% righteousness, or if 1 in 4 people are righteous. It could be both, from what I've seen. I think that we all struggle in the Kali Yuga. Get this. Everybody was like 100 feet tall, according to the books, the Satya Yuga, the Tartar Yuga. Everybody was like, they got shorter. They got a little bit smaller. They were just walking around like 50 feet tall. And then they were 25 feet tall. And then they're this. So Adam, supposedly from the Dorpa Yuga, the first humanoid that we know of as a human, right, was 20 to 25 feet tall. And if you look into the Zarachina is an interesting thing. If you go and you look into this is from Bulgaria. It is basically their Roswell. Go check it out. It's an interesting story. They claim to have Adam, the first man, but he was like 25 feet tall. They're like, how could that be? Because the Satya Yuga, the Tetra Yuga, the Kali Yuga, all these different ages, we were different. We looked different. The 200 Watchers came, right? Everybody talks about the 200 Watchers. Most likely that was the beginning of the Dorpa Yuga, going from the Tatra into the Dorpa. And then it got so bad that eventually things had to be done. I believe, in my opinion, that that's when you saw Atlantis and Lemuria. Because, and I want to look this up, make sure we're 100% correct. Look it up. How long were the yugas? I know that this yuga is the shortest one, thank goodness, but it's still 432,000 years or something like that. The 3 to 4 million year ago timeline would make sense because that would be toward the beginning of the Dorpa Yuga, where morality was at 50%. Still better than it is here, but not nearly as good as it was in the 2 before that. How many civilizations maybe have come and gone since the beginning of this yugas? And how many were here before that in the other yugas that were before these yugas?
So the Satya Yuga, it says, is 1,728,000 years. That's the golden age. The Tetra Yuga, the silver age, 1,296,000 years. The Dapur Yuga, the bronze age, is 864,000. And the Iron Age, which we are currently, is 432,000.
432,000. That's weird because I remember the yugas being like, altogether, they're 4,320,000 years. It's a cycle. According to traditional Hindu cosmology, right? A full, what they call a Maha Yuga, right? Is a cycle of 4 ages, totaling 4,320,000 years. I think that the 4 million year or 4 to 3 million years goes back to the beginning of the Satya Yuga, and possibly ending in the Dorpa Yuga because they destroyed themselves. I think what we're seeing right now is something that goes back over 1 million years. This is my opinion. I can't say 100%. But I used to believe that the Dorpa Yuga was, at the end of the Dorpa Yuga, was the flood. And then that set everything in motion. But now I don't believe that. I believe that the Kali Yuga, we're right in the middle of the Kali Yuga. And that the flood may have happened sooner than we think it did. And I think it happened multiple times, but the reason is why. Everybody wants to know why. Here's a weird thing. ISIS. And a lot of people don't know who or what ISIS is. But ISIS actually targeted many, many, many old world buildings. And they did it in the name of Islam. But was ISIS really an Islamic creation? Was ISIS actually Islamic? Because a lot of people believe that it wasn't. There's a lot of reasons why, and I'll get into that in a minute here. But one of the things they did was they targeted this, and you guys can look this up for me. They targeted a temple that was built in honor of a storm god. And it was in what would be ancient Samaria. And you can just look it up. ISIS targeting buildings. Then they destroyed this building. Why was it important for them to destroy the building? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Enlil was the storm god of Samaria. And supposedly, he's the one that actually caused one of the floods. And there are written records on the walls in the temples. You were not allowed to take pictures of these buildings and the insides of them. But these beings supposedly were like gods, and they destroyed the earth because they didn't like, supposedly, what they had created.
Was it called the Temple of Bel?
The Temple of Bel. Not Baal, Bel. It's Bel, right?
Mhm.
Right. And supposedly he was the storm god, but it's Enlil. If you look him up, there's different names. They destroyed all kinds of buildings, all kinds of history, all kinds of past. And it gets worse. It wasn't just them that did it. It happened during World War I. It happened during World War II. In fact, if you look into this, the Soviets
Bel isn't it? It's a temple of Bel Shahim.
Bel Shahim, yeah. So the Soviet documents, the release documents, they confirmed that during World War II, specifically surrounding the 1941 threat to Moscow, Stalin had plans to destroy over 1,200 buildings, including landmarks like the Bolshoi Theater. Get this. This is funny, right? This is funny. He wanted to destroy that, and he wanted to destroy St. Basil's Cathedral. St. Basil's Cathedral, it's an old building. It's been there for so long. Nobody can even remember when the hell it was built. It had been there for so long. Why did he want to destroy 1,200 buildings? Why would he want to destroy a theater? And why would he want to destroy a church? Any ideas? What do you think he wanted to do that?
That's what communism does. That's their MO. Destroy any religious buildings, that period. Because you're supposed to worship the state, and Stalin is your god.
But you know what his excuse was? This was his excuse. And this is exactly why I know he's full of shit. And this is not, excuse my language, but this is why I know it's not real. His reasoning. His reasoning was, I want to prevent the Germans from taking these buildings and using them. What strategic purpose would the German Wehrmacht or the Waffen-SS have to do with, he threatened to destroy these buildings. He told the whole world, if they come to Moscow, I'm destroying all these old buildings. And the whole world, he was told this, right? They're put on notice. You better watch it, because if these Germans set foot in Moscow, we're going to blow up all these buildings. He literally said this. The Soviet, the unredacted documents now, they say this. Why would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. And get this, but we'll go back to that, right? Hold that thought. And then what ISIS was doing too. Why? Why would you do this? Another weird thing, and I said this on the show on PRT earlier, History Channel, they never give the Germans anything during World War II. They have a vested interest in them being the ultimate boogeyman. They are the bad guys, 110%. You don't have any choice. If you say that they are not, you are an evil, evil Nazi, which is literally worse than Satan. It's worse than Super Devil. Right? But they said a group of German pilots got lost and accidentally bombed civilian targets in London. And I'm sitting there and I'm literally like, I almost choked. I was like, what? They got lost in an accident. And then in retaliation, England bombed Germany, and they bombed they did the same thing to them later on. They bombed them, and they destroyed all these old world cities. The tomb of Barbarossa, all these different places just wiped out. They were just because Germany after World War II, if you've seen pictures of it, it was just reduced to rubble. And Dresden, oh my gosh, it was turned into a firestorm. The Red Cross was there in Dresden. That's crazy. Why would they bomb Dresden, which was a civilian? It was declared as literally an off limits civilian zone. Switzerland had said this. They were neutral during the war, and they said, look, the Red Cross is there. We have people there, and they're attending to Polish, Russian, Italian, German people that are prisoners of war, and some that are sick and hurt and wounded. And it is a hub for people who are, been displaced. They also claimed that there were over 200,000 Jewish people there. So naturally, that would be the place to go and bomb, right? Churchill gets together with his buddy FDR, and of course, they're like, you know what? Let's go bomb Dresden. Except they didn't want to do it themselves. They tried to talk the Soviets into it. And Stalin, being a piece of shit, but still smart enough to know what they were up to, he's like, with his little Super Mario mustache and his little Super Mario hat, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna help you do that. I think I'm gonna prepare for the aftermath of the war. He knew it was going to come to an end with all the Allied supplies he was given. It's also a funny thing to me that people really believe the Bolshevik, that the Germans got beaten. They got beaten by the mighty Russian bear. No, they did not. They got beaten by tons and hundreds and thousands of tons of material that was just poured into the Soviet ranks by the Allies to defeat the Germans. They did not do it themselves. I'm sorry. And if you believe that, there are people who romanticize that. They love it. They think that they're the good guys, and they think that old Uncle Joe was a good guy. He was not, I assure you. His NKVD killed 60 million Christians. He was an evil, pompous little degenerate from Georgia. Not Georgia, United States, Georgia, Russia. Horrible. Bad guy. But the little mustache guy gets all of the bad press, right? Because he espoused a belief that is really bad to the elites. He didn't like Zionism. He didn't like cultural Marxism. He knew it was real. And he also didn't like he didn't like Freemasonry. He thought it all needed to be destroyed. Capitalism and communism were twin pillars of evil. I can't say that I disagree with that part. They aren't good. One teaches greed, and the other one is an oppression of the spirit, mind, and body. I'll take capitalism over communism, but they're still evil. And a lot of people get it backwards. They think that the communists were bad, but the Germans were really bad. No, it's the opposite. Trust me, it's the opposite. I do believe in my heart that people have good intentions and they try to do what's right and they think that they're doing what's right, but they don't. They don't get it. They don't understand. And we're not understanding when people don't understand about, why they destroyed these buildings. The buildings hold the key from the architecture, but everything that we've been taught about history is a lie. I'm talking 90% is a lie. The buildings held something on top of them. Do you know what they were? Does anybody have any idea? I hope somebody in the audience. We have one of the smartest audiences on YouTube. I'm sure you can figure it out. What did they have on top of their buildings? Anybody know? Brent's got part of it right. He says, sacred geometry. Yeah, look at that. I knew it was free. Here we go. Look at this. Look at how smart our audience is. If you're new here, you're wanting to be a part of what we're doing here, just know that you are joining with some of the smartest people on the internet. Look at the phone. Keeps telling me, take a break. Take a break. Woo. You've just been going. You've been going for hours, man. Take a break. Woo. Come on, man. It's like you're watching Jeopardy and you're getting, in over your head. Ooh, pick cartoons, dude. Pick cartoons, man. These subjects are just, Nah, dude, let's keep going. I like where this is headed. I can tell you this. There is a lot to these energy, what they call them, the energy towers. There we go. Bells that heal. Free energy. Free energy right there. See that? These are towers. Look this up, Anthony.
Mhm.
Look up Tesla coils. Free energy. Do you realize that a lot of these old buildings, and there's not a lot of pictures left of them, but you can find them if you look them up. They had these on all of these old buildings. You know, my grandfather's grandfather had some on his house. People called them lightning rods. They said, oh, they're just lightning rods. Why the hell did you need that to strike your house? You don't need that. My grandfather had one. It looked like a big rod with a ball on the top of it. And I asked my grandfather, he wasn't a pack rat. He didn't have a whole lot of, but I said, what is that? He said, my grandfather's grandfather had those. This is what my grandfather called them. He called them energy rods. Do you know what he did with these rods? They also had a thing called the Farmer's Almanac, which seemed to actually work. It really did. And I can get into all that one day and tell you about it on the Random Files. We can talk about it. Does anybody know what these rods were capable of doing? Capturing energy, right? But did you know that if you planted them in the soil near your garden, that it would actually help your fruits and vegetables grow exponentially? Why do you think that is? Some people call them grounding rods, energy rods.
That's real cute. Every time I Google like Tesla coil free energy, and like everything that comes up, it's just how about it. It's not true. It's a myth, and it's this and that. Like every single result.
What a farce.
Mhm.
And there is Beyond the Box. That is Brenda. She's always over in Abe's chat, which is Abe Cius, Spiritual Cryptid Encounter. Shout out to him. Yes, copper in my plants. Some people wear copper bracelets, but gold and silver is good too. It's very healthy to wear. The higher the gold, the better. Some bracelets have more gold than others, and then some are less. But if you wear gold, silver, copper, and then they have these bracelets, and they'll have like I don't have any with me right now. I don't think I have any. Like this is a grounding bracelet. I got a few different bracelets. I don't think I have any in the studio. But I can show you what they look like. And if you wear these, they will balance you. They will ground you. They will make you feel better. It's weird because why? And I have the question here. Why would my grandfather's grandfather have those passed down to his dad and then to my grandfather? And then, I don't know what happened. When they moved from Central Texas to Marfa, a bunch of stuff got tossed out. And when we were out in Marfa, that's the last time I saw them, was when they were in the storage building. And my grandmother moved from there to Sour Lake. And I don't know what ever happened. She moved clear across the state. But a lot of these old buildings had those balls on the top of them. The architecture. Why would they have those if it's all a myth? And why in every war were these buildings targeted? And why were these buildings destroyed? I'll tell you why. What I believe is that these buildings were destroyed and they were targeted because they had free energy. And to get rid of that, the old world. And let me ask you this. Since when would the History Channel give the Germans anything and actually play a video that says, "Oh, they just got lost and blew those up"? How in the hell did they get lost? And then the English retaliate, "Oh no, you've destroyed some of our old world architectural buildings." In fact, all of the things that they destroyed were just of the old world architecture. The Germans were saying this, and this is actually in the Soviet documents. The Soviets had spies everywhere, probably had the best spy network anywhere in the world, which is even more shocking when you see that Stalin was not prepared for the invasion. The best spy network in probably the whole war, other than maybe Britain, and everybody knew. But Stalin, kind of weird. We'll get into that one day. But these coils, these spirals, these whatever, why were they used? To harness energy, right? No doubt. Why were they targeted? And why did Germany blow them up? Well, the Germans said this. The English, they said the English, this wasn't Britain, this wasn't Scotland and Ireland and everybody. The English put their munitions underneath places where these buildings were. So the Germans said, no, we didn't get lost. We blew them up because that's where they put their weapons. When you take off the mask of Churchill and you start to realize he is one of the most wicked people in the 20th century, he's not the most wickedest, but he's close. Him and Stalin are two peas in a pod. And I put them together. I think Hitler was maniacal, half crazy. And I think he also did the Germans a disservice by all the bullshit he did because he was not a military commander. But I do believe that the Germans knew what they were doing. They didn't get lost and accidentally hit civilian targets. The British government, the English, actually put these weapons, munitions, in places where there were civilians. And in particular, places where they could have a casualty rate that they wanted and get rid of these old world buildings. I said it on the other show, and I'll say it here. They don't waste movement. What does that mean, Anthony? What have I told you about that?
It means that whenever they make a decision, whenever these people do anything, they make sure that when they fire one stone, that they hit 3 birds, 3, 4, 5, however many, but they don't make any decisions. They don't do anything. Everything is meticulously planned. Everything is strategic. They know what they're doing, and they play the long game with everything.
Exactly. Everything they do is not an accident. It's not. And so when they decided that they were going to blow up these buildings, Hitler, this is not Hitler and the Germans saying this. This is the Soviets, the stuff that came out after Perestroika. According to their spies, they said the Germans, they said, hey, we're going to go after these targets because that is where the weapons are. We're going to knock them out. And then England said, oh, since you've targeted civilians and since you targeted our old architecture, we're going to do it to you. What a nice excuse. And now you have them and the Americans. But when it came time to bomb Dresden, they couldn't get the American pilots or the British to go do it because the mandates by the Red Cross and the World Congress or whatever, the precursor to the UN, whatever it was, they said, you can't do this. So you know who actually flew those missions? Do you know? The Polish. They went to Polish pilots and they said, you have to go and destroy Dresden. You need to bomb these targets in Dresden. And the Poles balked. They said, you got about 600,000 of our countrymen there at Dresden. I'm not going to do that. And they were like, yes, so what? At gunpoint, the SAS, the British operatives, pointed guns at these, or whoever the British was the precursor to that. They literally, this is true, they made them at gunpoint go and fly the missions. So these Polish pilots did it. They went in and they firebombed Dresden, turning it into a firestorm, killing millions of people and destroying what was once the heart of East German architecture and culture, and some say one of the most pivotal cities in Tartaria. All of these buildings with the architecture. League of Nations, there you go. So they get rid of it. They destroy it. Good for them, right? And the English said, oh, yeah, we did this, but the Poles did it. It was them that did it. We told them not to do it, but they took our planes and ran it, and that was the first. And then eventually it just comes out that, yeah, you're full of shit. Because you asked the Soviets to do it. You asked them to participate. But the Potsdam Conference happened, and Potsdam, if you screwed up there, you gave Stalin everything except for Spain. Why did he want Spain? Oh, something about Franco and him giving him a real bloody nose in Leningrad, the Azul division. Till the day he died, he wanted Franco. He wanted his ass. He wanted to get him. But guess what? Spain went through the transformation too. Do you know why? Do you know how? Even though they weren't attacked by the Allies, because they avoided confrontation with the Allies and only fought the communists. So they never got hit with that. But all their old architecture was destroyed too. Do you know who did it? Anthony knows. Who destroyed Spain's old world architecture?
Oh, during the Spanish Civil War, it was
The
the
Spanish
communists.
Civil
Yeah,
War, the communists.
yeah, they decimated them.
You know what they did? They went in and they,
No word?
yeah, there it goes. They went in and they blew up these old cathedrals, old buildings, theaters. They attacked all of these. And people were like, why do the communists always attack and target these old world buildings? Oh, this was the Borgias. The Borgias. We had to get rid of them. We have to get rid of the monarchical past. No, bullshit. What you're doing is getting rid of Tartaria. That's what you did. Communism was a hammer to sweep out what Islam didn't. And if you think for a second that Islam was not involved in the destruction of these buildings in Afghanistan, that they were, absolutely. But ISIS is actually not Islamic. Yes, some of it is Islamic. But who actually created it? Comes the deep water. Maybe, and I say this for entertainment purposes only, maybe the United States and Israel had something to do with the formation of ISIL cells, ISIS. Israeli. What does ISIS stand for? Do you know what people say it stands for?
Yeah.
Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. ISIS. Is that real? I don't know. Like I said, I'm spitballing here. I could be way off. I think probably I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just off. I don't know. Remember, this is all just bullshit that I'm spewing here, and this is all for entertainment purposes only. But they destroyed a lot of buildings, old world buildings from past civilizations. They destroyed a lot. They did a lot of work. Not quite as much as their buddies, the communists, but they did a lot of work. And they conned these, they got these ignorant Islamic people who can't read and write, half of them are dumb as hell, to go along with this crap and to do the same thing. Get rid of this. It's the past. It might teach you something, so we need to get rid of it. Part of the invasion of Iraq was to cripple Saddam and stop them from being able to do anything to Israel. And well, they wanted to get rid of their chief rival in the Middle East. The plan was to use Iraq as a stepping stone to Iran. The ultimate goal was Persia. Always has been. There's multiple layers to this, folks. One of the layers is that Saddam was protecting Christians. Before you say that's crazy, no, it's not. There were 17% Christian in that country, and now it's down to like 2 or 3%. There's nothing left. The Christians have been wiped out, they've been destroyed. And another layer to this was that they wanted to get rid of the old world, the old technology, the time before time that they created, because the Middle East was still under control. And the Great Reset, there were still lots and lots of old buildings still standing from the prior civilizations. I could also get into how it connects to the United States and America, North America in particular, and how this could be some of what is actually biblical, the land that we stand on, and how Egypt was actually the Grand Canyon. Kind of weird to think about, right? The erosion theory that the Grand Canyon was just eroded, I don't believe that. Some of the walls on the Grand Canyon look like they were melted. And what if the Nile really was the Mississippi? These are theories, not my theories. These are espoused by Tartarians like Guy Anderson. I didn't take into this lightly. I actually did a lot of research and looked into this and thought, you know what? If these people are talking about this, maybe I should talk about it, but I need to know, and I need to do a lot of freaking research. And that's where the having knowledge of history and science and math comes into play. And this connects to the stuff we talk about on the other channels. I got to tell you, it is compelling. It's very compelling. I don't know 100% if I'm on the right track 100%. Nobody can really know. But I'll say this. I do believe that there was an ancient civilization 3 to 4 million years ago that was in harmony with everything. And then around the time of the Dorpa Yuga, it was destroyed. I think Lemuria and Atlantis destroyed each other. One of my friends, and I've talked about him on the show, is Ute, and his grandfather, was a medicine man. And what he told me was there was a group of people, and Anthony, you've heard this. He said there were multiple eras. In fact, they believe in like 5 or 6 eras of mankind. And every time there is one group of people, a race, a religion, whatever, and they work to usurp and destroy and undermine everyone else. And it happens again and again and again. His only goes back to the time of the Dorpa Yuga. If you go back, it goes back about 800,000 years. And every one of those 150,000 years, there is a stumbling block there. Anywhere from 100 to 150,000 years. And it happened 6 times. We're the 7th and the last, which coincides with the Kali Yuga. And we would be those small dwarf, people, because we're tiny. 6 foot is nothing compared to our ancestors. Adam. What is the end game, you said? Well, for starters, it's slavery for all of us. But one of the weird things that they want to do is move us back to this pre-Adamic race, which is hermaphrodite. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? But they've talked about this. There are people who were on the inside who talked about this. And they believe that we should go back to the beginning, which is Adam was originally a hermaphrodite. And it also involves the worship of gods like Baal, Moloch, Remphan, Baphomet. Baphomet is got boobs and male genitalia. If you watch television, I've said this before, you'll see them with showing boobs. They always show boobs, but they don't show female genitalia hardly ever. That they show male genitalia, and they'll show boobs. They put it into your mind. The female genitalia is on the hermaphrodite is located underneath that, right? That's so you don't need to see it. Just know that it's there, and there's boobs there to prove it. But transgenderism is a step towards that. That is literally one of these sick games that these elites, and we'll call them elites, we really know who they are. You know who they are. If you do some math, Jesus says, know them by their works. Revelations, 2:9, 3:9. Take a look. These people literally control all of the movie industry. They control the porn industry. They control all of this, the sick, degenerative, whatever. Because before you can destroy a civilization, you have to do what? What do you got to do to it?
Undermine it.
Undermine it, weaken it. Like termites. So exactly. It's gotten to our children. Exactly. And then you've heard, oh yeah, Matt just said it right there. Harvey Weinstein. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about him? And supposedly him being both? Really strange, right? Really weird. You're going like, what is up with these people? Why do they do what they do? Well, because they follow their God, the God of this world. They wear a black cube on their head, and their creation, yes, their creation, they run around a black cube at Mecca. And people go, oh, come on, Wolf, you're just, really? I'm crazy? You think I'm crazy? But when you start putting all the pieces together, then you start realizing that, hey, maybe the world isn't what we thought it was. And maybe there was a civilization known as Tartaria. And what they're trying to do is destroy and eradicate our past because that obliterates our future. And our present turns into shite. And guess what? All of our buildings, everything that we built, everything from Asia to Europe, all destroyed. And how many wars have been fought now in Asia and in Europe, where all these buildings are always attacked? Mao Zedong, not only, he wasn't just happy to destroy the buildings. What did he do? What else did he kill? What did he do? Anthony, do you know? He killed the animals. He killed so many birds. He didn't realize birds don't benefit mankind or the state of communism, so they killed them. Did you know that?
Yeah, if they don't benefit the government at all, then.
But did you know he
they're
killed the
useless.
birds?
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, look it up. See how many birds he killed and what caused it. What was the what happened after that?
The Russians did the same thing.
Did the same thing, yeah. In the Taiga region in Russia, the Taiga being Tiga, they went in and they tried to kill all of the Kamchatkan bears. They killed all of these wild dogs. They killed species that were no longer we'll ever see again because the Soviets went in. Same thing the Chinese did. And you know what they did? They destroyed all of these buildings in Siberia that people say now, I'm going to do a whole series on it on PRT because I have friends that live there. One of my friends who owns a company, I'm going to tell you, he built, his whole company was building these giant tractor tires for these trucks to go out into the Siberian, and they found buildings still there to this day that were spared by the Gorbachev administration.
200 million sparrows. Estimates vary between 200 million sparrows and 2 billion birds in total.
200 million to 2 billion birds were killed. And what did that cost? Tell them.
No, I'm still reading this.
Yeah.
This is just talking about the numbers.
Okay, so anyway, what it does is, and Rain just said something right there. Look, the birds were essential for eating bugs. So the boll weevil destroyed crops and ended up killing millions of people who they thought we have all the answers. Birds also could, yeah, they control locusts. And guess what? A great famine happened and it killed millions of people because these are stupid people. And communism was one of the tools of the Great Reset of Tartaria. They had to get rid of it, they had to destroy it. And the hub of Tartaria was Russia. Have you ever heard that Jewish people, one of their greatest enemies, they say this all the time, was Russia? Do you know why their enemy was Russia? I'll tell you why. Because they had a civilization called Khazaria. And it was located in between, it was part of Ukraine, southern Ukraine, and Russia. And the Cossacks destroyed it. They helped the Russians, to destroy that civilization because they were pagan and they were Edomites, basically. And they got destroyed, obliterated. Revenge, perhaps. But when you're part of the program of the Matrix, you're going to go after whoever it is that you need to destroy. And in this case, it was Tartaria, Russia. The Tsar was the bloodline, needed to be cut off, choked out. And they had a lot of Germanic blood in the Tsars. People would be in charge of a country with royal blood, but not necessarily from there. Think of the Medicis, who ruled in France. They were not French. These people were Italian. Just like you could have the Borgia Pope be Spain, right? And they're in Italy. But people, they don't realize, like a lot of who's ruling them, they're just intermarrying with these cousins and whatever. But the Tsars were different. They did intermarry with all, they did all of that too. But they had the bloodline of the Tartarians. And so they had to be destroyed. And what better way to get rid of somebody than to create something so awful, a golem, if you will, as like communism? Do you realize that the golem from the 600s AD was called Islam? Look up the 10 wise rabbis. They got together and they created Islam. That's the theory. Like I said, this is for entertainment purposes only, and I'm just a guy up here talking shit. And I'm not giving you anything solid, so you can't really, you don't know. You know, it's just, this is all just a bunch of bullshit. Remember that, folks. We're just talking shit, right? I'm spitballing, and I'm just throwing ideas out there that I'm just pulling out of the air. Right? Anyways, it's been an hour, and I have to go. But remember, Random Files will be back, and we'll continue this discussion, and we will get back into it. And I'll tell you more, and you'll learn more, and you'll know more and more and more. We're going to do a video. We're going to drop it on a pre-record coming up pretty soon about some different things. And then Anthony and I are going to do a video about the gold to silver to cattle ratio. Why is cattle so damn high? And why is everybody panicking and freaking out and buying gold and silver? And why, when the war hit, did gold and silver not go up like it should have? That's a weird thing, right? That doesn't make sense. It's always been a hedge against all of this crap. Right? And why, oh, why did Israel target oil? Oh, well, we're trying to choke off their money supply. Are you? There's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be answered. Watch this video, like and subscribe, watch it again and watch it again so we can get monetized and we can get really rolling on this channel, because I need this channel to blow up and get big and spread the word. And I wish every single one of you would go out and make your own channel and start talking about this stuff. Imagine if everybody listening, 130 people, that's not a whole lot of people. It's not as big as we get over at the other channel, but you know, it's a start. Imagine if everybody started talking about this. And I left a lot of things unanswered today, and I brought a lot of stuff up, and I didn't finish it. And I did that on purpose because I want you to come back because I don't have the time to tell you the history of the entire world in just an hour. But over the course of the next several months, or however many months or years, or however long I got, I'm going to tell you. And a lot of people aren't going to like this Hindenburg. Yeah, there's another one. You know what was on the? I could talk. I don't want to get back into it, but the Hindenburg, yeah. I could talk about this forever, but I don't have the time to talk about this. Oh, you know what? Somebody just hopped on. Let me do this before I got to run here. Hello?
Hello. I won't take much of your time. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you got me playing in the background.
Oh crap. How do I
I don't know. There's an echo.
hold on one second.
I would just turn it down. Did you get it down? Well, unfortunately, I think she turned herself down. Did you turn yourself down there, Anna?
Yeah, I'll get this figured out eventually.
Let me see if it's still echoing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and the echo's going. You can barely hear it, just a little bit back in the background.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can hear it kind of repeating. So, folks, if you don't know who this is Anna Choate, and she's going to be one of my co-hosts once a week at least on the Random Files. She's actually like right now not at her house, so she's having to make do with what she's got. So she told me she was going to be on when she could. But anyways, we're going to be delving into a lot of this. If you don't know Anna, she does a lot of geopolitical posting and a lot of political posting on her Facebook, which gets hundreds of people talking, arguing. It gets a
Yeah,
lot
that
of people
too.
liking and disliking and whatever. And most of the time I'm like, but you see a lot of people on there like, don't like, well, too bad. They don't like the truth. And so Anna and me have been friends for years. If you remember, and if you're a PRT veteran or a paratrooper from the way back, she was on our show and we talked about the Herb Baumeister case, which was a serial killer. And he did what he did in Indiana. And there were tons of EVPs and all kinds of weird stuff from the killing ground where he did what he did at Fox Hollow Farms. And it was basically, I think the
Yes.
title was Haunting at Fox Hollow Farms. And Anna came on. That was the only time she came on, but we've been talking for years and we've been friends for years. And you also did an investigation at John Wayne Gacy's. Well, the house that was there was destroyed, but there was another house that was built. And so
Yeah,
ghost investigation.
yeah, we can get into that later because I know you have to run. And the other thing I should mention too, because I was one of your OGs. I think it was episode 26, or I don't know, it was in the 20s, but we did a 2-part episode because we talked for so long. And the other thing that we talked about that people might be interested in was that I literally had an alien show up on my doorstep, basically. I know that sounds insane, but that did happen. So if people want to check that out, but I can do a recap on that at some point too. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, I was a paranormal investigator for about a decade, and I traveled all over the country with my team. So I have a lot of fun stories we can get into, and then all the geopolitical stuff. And I was just, I sent you a text while I was listening, but I know you got to run. I just wanted to hop on super quick because I know you wanted to introduce me. And I was just transfixed listening to you because you were on a roll. So I was sitting here listening to all the different rabbit holes you were going down.
Yeah, and we're going to do show after show after show talking about those rabbit holes and going down into those spirals.
Oh yeah,
Because
all
they take you down.
Oh yeah, Saturn and the Kali Yuga, everything you were getting into is all stuff that I am super obsessed with as well. So I would love to get into more of it.
Yeah, because it came up again about the buildings being destroyed in Iran. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's not targeted. I know exactly what that is. And part of what they need to do in Iran, there's 5 parts really. The first part is to, yeah, the surface level stuff, which is to destroy their ability to fund terror cells, right? That's on the surface. I'm not gonna say that's completely untrue, right? So regime change, right? That goes hand in hand with that. And I guess you can call those two. Number three, they want to take control of the oil there, which is that's like I said, surface level stuff, but it gets deeper. Four is to sever the connection that they have with Persia and destroy any history that comes out of there. Get rid of the vestiges that shows that everything they've done is just a mock-up. One of the reasons why they had to get rid of the guy before the Shah, and I got to say this, was because a lot of people were going there as tourists and they were seeing these structures and they were like, what is this? And Iran refused to get rid of them. And number five, and the most important, is the IMF. They really need to be a part of the Rothschild banking system, and they are not. And they have their own economy, and they don't play by the rules, and they sell oil to our enemies or whatever. But the truth is the truth. They're trying to get rid of the last vestiges of Tartaria, and that's a big part of it. And it's something that most of the other countries have been able to just get on board and destroy. But these guys don't do that, and they're not doing that. So we're doing it for them because we know what's best for them. So you have the surface level and then the stuff right below the surface. Then you have, then you get to that point where it's plateaued and everybody thinks, oh, I've hit the bottom. I've figured it all out. Then you have to go deeper.
Yeah.
Because just when you get to that point where you think you've got it all figured out, then you got to go into the inner earth.
Yeah, that's another topic I want to get into with you.
Mhm.
But that I've been obsessed with for many years, as you know. But Tartaria is something that's, as you know, I've been down 10,000 rabbit holes for the past almost 20 years of my life. But that is one topic that I only really recently got into. So I'm a novice on that. And that's part of why I was just sitting there listening to you and didn't call in sooner. So I'd love for you to school me on that more.
Yeah, and it is an education because I had Guy Anderson on, and I agreed with most of what he was saying, but not all. But some of it that I didn't agree with at the time because I hadn't researched it enough, and so I
Mhm.
waited, until I was schooled enough. And
Right.
like I said, this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay, everybody,
Yeah,
because yeah,
that was another thing you said. I thought it was funny. I don't know if you saw my post the other day, but a certain alphabet agency here, and then another agency that starts with an M from a country that we will not name, may have started some of those terrorist organizations. But yes,
yeah.
this is all for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, I did. I
Mhm.
actually just posted about that. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, and when you start going down those rabbit holes, then you start to go, "Whoa, this is weird."
Hmm.
And it all kind of connects and it all is, and then you start to, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That is the thing. It's incredible. You can't go back and go, okay, well, I didn't see that. And once you read these things, and I tell people too, use different browsers, use Yandex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had some idiot comment today and was like, calling me crazy for thinking that, and I was thinking, "Oh, dude, you have a lot to learn about how the world actually works."
Hmm. And like I said, even when you think you've got it figured out and you get down to what you think is the bottom, there's always more, deeper, deeper, deeper.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I say all the time that I know enough to know that I don't know anything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
so we're going to be working together, and me and you and I, we're gonna do some great things on this channel, and for the real Rumble. I mean, the real Random Files on Rumble, and for this channel, and we're gonna scratch the surface and keep scratching until we get down to a lot of truths, and some of it may be fun and
Absolutely.
entertaining, some of it may be uncomfortable, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, I am stuck in a hotel room as I'm traveling for the next few weeks. You guys may have heard my cat meowing. She is traveling with me, my boss. But I actually ordered a bunch of equipment on Amazon, so I will not forever be a black screen. I should have that all set up for video here shortly. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for coming on. Thank you for showing up and talking. And we're gonna run.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll be in
Thanks.
touch.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
Anna. Bye. So that's Anna Choate. That's my co-host that's going to be on here doing things with me and with Anthony, and we're going to go down these rabbit holes, and we're going to talk about surface level stuff, and we're going to get into some deep stuff. This is the Random Files. Who knows where we'll go? And if there's any of these topics that I touched on tonight that you want more information on, we're going to get an email address for this channel too, and you can send that to me, and we can talk about it. Or if you want to be a guest on the Random Files and talk about something that you have, then So this is a natural companion to Paranormal Roundtable, Dead Zone Transmissions, and True Crime Paranormal. And if you watch all the videos from all the different shows, there's an overarching thing there. See if you can figure it out. See if you can find it. But you have to watch True Crime Paranormal. You have to watch this, PRT, and Dead Zone Transmissions, because some of Dead Zone Transmissions shows up in the Random Files and in PRT and in True Crime Paranormal. See if you can figure it out. Eventually, I'll tell you, but it won't be for a long, long time. Right? All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We don't have a huge crowd here tonight, but hey, I'm appreciative for the ones that showed up. You're the hardcore. You're the paratroopers. I know who you are, and I know you appreciate the work that we're doing and that we've done and that we will do. Pray for me, please, because I am under attack constantly. I really am constantly under attack. And it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's mental, and they're messing with everything. I'm having problems with my businesses, with everything. I don't know where the future is going to take me. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not a little worried, because if I told you that, I'd be lying. I'm not lying. So I do fear, for the future, of what I'm going to do for myself, my family, my friends, and where we're headed. Are we headed for another reset? Probably. And why is the reset happening quicker this time? Because of technology. Technology has afforded people to be more in the know. So they got to do another reset quickly and get it done. And remember, things aren't always what they seem. On the surface, things look a certain way, but don't be fooled. In the Bible, it talks about the elect. And if it was possible, even the elect would be deceived. But it says if it were possible, which means it's not possible. So the elect can't be fooled. And if they get you, which they get all of us in the beginning, just remember, you can pull out of that. God gives you a ton of abilities. You just got to recognize and realize who and what you really are. Why do they want us so much? Why do they want us? We're going to do a show about the city of night eventually. Maybe here it'll go across over to PRT. And I'll have probably a guest or two on, but this is crazy. They want you because you're like a battery. You harness energy. They harvest energy. And you're harnessing it yourself. You're carrying it. But what's crazy is that Tesla was onto something. He caught wind of the old world. He caught a glimpse of it. He realized it. But they couldn't put a meter on it, right? Anyways, guys, I love you. I hope that everything works out for you guys. We're going to bail. I'm going to play one of the Alice in Wonderland songs here, because we are going down the rabbit hole, aren't we?
A pill and no smoke, rings of wisdom, magic mushrooms in this kingdom size to control.